Kesha, your view on opportunities for students graduating in Vermont?
Well, right now, I believe we're really borrowing from our future rather than investing in it. There are a lot of young people that come from around Vermont and around the country to go to school at UVM or the other colleges and the other colleges that we have in Vermont. And right now, they face crippling debt as they leave. We need to really be increasing choices for their professional development while they're in school and when they graduate. And the stress, the financial stress that they face really makes it difficult for them to be able to take advantage of a lot of opportunities in perhaps in jobs in Vermont, particularly. I think it's great to advocate for more wind energy and more green jobs in the state, but we need to have workforce training programs at our colleges and university so that young people can come out from the back of the hiring line and take those jobs and make sure they have the skills to attribute to good paying local jobs in green energy and in a whole host of fields, and make sure we're connecting our education programs to the jobs that can be created in the state and are currently being created. Lastly, I also think it's really important and helpful to connect the research and ideas coming out of UVM, our premier research institution, to the action and the work in Montpelier. I know that with the help of Rachel Weston, my undergraduate thesis research, which was 2 years looking at environmental inequity in the state, then became this environmental justice legislation. And it really takes proactive leaders to help young people develop as they grow and learn in the classroom, but also outside the classroom, their ability to engage in the community and do so without crippling debt.
Thank you very much. Chris?
Well, I think the caller's question is right on the money and very central to the future of our state. I graduated from UVM with a sizable amount of student debt, and I remember going into in those days, the basement of Waterman and signing papers. I had no concept what that meant, and upon graduating, what it meant was about $350 a month, which going back 12 years was a fair amount of money. And I was sort of one of the lucky ones because I was able to get those loans and in order to be able to afford going to school. What I'm worried about for Vermont is that we are pricing college out of reach for many kids, and they're growing up going to high school, and they know, maybe it's not spoken at the dinner table, but they know that that opportunity is simply not there, and I think that has a very crippling effect on their own self-esteem and folks' ability to kind of aim high. You know, you only get what you ask for in life, and we're sort of robbing folks of that opportunity. It deeply concerns me. It's a question of priorities. You know, we are in tight budget times, no question about it. But we spent $4 billion last year. So the state is not broke. We have to realign priorities to address, as David said, spiraling correction costs, which are sacrificing what everybody in Montpelier wants to see, which is more money helping higher education. We've got to get serious about that. I've tried. It's very difficult without a seat on the Appropriations Committee to really impact that discussion, but we will continue to try. In terms of jobs, you know, I want to just hit at this myth a little bit that there are no jobs in Vermont, particularly for young people. I think you guys, CCTV, were part of the Vermont 2.0 last spring, and there's a new Vermont 3.0 coming up. It's a jobs fair for kind of the creative culture, high-tech industries around the Chittenden County area. And I walked through this wonderful thing down at the waterfront last spring, and literally people were recruiting, handing out applications, dying for people to apply for jobs. So, you know, we got to get training to catch up with those needs, but clearly there are some opportunities. A lot of businesses recognize this is a great state to do business in and want to stay here, and we got to just tweak some things and make sure that works.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Do you have a question for the candidates?
Yes, this is a question for all of you. What are your beliefs about early childhood education?
All right. Thank you very much. Kesha, why don't we start with you? It sounds right up your alley.
Sure. I teach preschool. I love working with children. I serve as the Head Start advocate at Burlington Children's Space, and that means I give special attention and resources to children from low-income families and also their parents and family members to help them gain the resources they need to stay in the community. I see a lot of really complex issues facing children, especially from low-income families and children who come to our preschool. As the Head Start advocate, I see families where parents are living at COTS, and they may lose their spot at COTS and have to move out of the community, and that disrupts their child's education. It puts a lot of stress on their children. And so really, to me, it's about providing stable opportunities for early childhood education and taking care of the family as a whole when we do that. We don't only deal with counting and letters and tying shoes, but developing basic social skills and early good habits for health. And I teach the kids how to brush their teeth properly. And that sort of stuff is really important from in terms of preventing dollars being spent down the line on crime and unhealthy habits that these children may develop if they didn't otherwise have the opportunities to be in early childhood education. It gives them a real head start as they enter the K through 12 system, and it allows them to be real well developed and able to engage as young people in the community.
Thank you very much. Chris Pearson.
To me, it's a very important issue, early childhood education. For me, it begins and ends with this statistic. For every dollar you invest in early childhood education, you save $7 down the road in corrections costs and all sorts of costs that are associated with folks who are a burden on the system, food stamps and so forth. And you know, that's just monetary. And saving $6 would be great. Investing $1 and saving $7 makes a lot of sense. But it goes to a larger reality, which is that, again, we're sort of like higher education. We need to be investing in opportunities for people. We need to do small investments up front that pay dividends down the road so that people stay through school, and the literacy rates and the reading rates and all sorts of things like special education costs come down when you have that early childhood education, which is so important. When I went to Montpelier 2 years ago, I talked a lot about the property tax burden and what that meant for our schools and for homeowners. And I was suggesting that we should move away from the property tax to fund schools and move to an income tax. Immediately, as soon as I got to Montpelier, many people approached me and said, we're interested in that issue. And we formed a tripartisan group to look at it. And we didn't pass that bill. But this is something that I take great pride in, and as the progressive in that tripartisan coalition, I pushed, and I pushed, and I pushed. And finally, we held a press conference, and the Free Press ran the headline, "Tripartisan Group Puts Income Tax for Schools on the Table." And that has to be, paying for this stuff is central to all of these questions. And you know, I stand by my record as sparking conversations and putting alternative discussions on the table. But no question, early childhood education is very important.
Thank you very much. Dave Zuckerman?
Well, as a parent of a 2.5-year-old who goes to Trinity Daycare up in our district, or just outside our district now, I can appreciate the importance of it, both in terms of the social skills that the children get, the exposure they get to various teaching systems and all the things they need to learn. You know, we think we've done a pretty good job at home as well. But you know, not everybody had the time in those first couple of years to necessarily also spend some time with their child. As farmers, you know, we have a little more time in the winter, and so we've been able to rear our child ourselves for those first couple of years, and that was a real fortunate circumstance. Most people don't have that circumstance in these challenging economic times, and haven't had that chance for a long time as our economy has continued to squeeze the lower income community and even the middle income community down, or the very wealthy up. But a lot of everyday folks with, you know, decent paying jobs still have to keep their kids in childcare in order to make enough money to live. At the same time, childcare is expensive. The folks aren't paid enough to do the work. I was a recipient of the Vermont Children's Forum 2002 legislative champion for kids because of my work back in those years. You know, this is something that mattered to me before I had children and will continue to matter to me throughout. But so many of these issues, as Chris mentioned, go back to economics. How are we going to raise the money in the state government to pay for some of these services or some of the support, and also how are we going to create an economic system where people have the resources to either have someone stay at home and raise a child, which could be either parent, it doesn't matter to me, and or have the resources to be able to afford childcare, because it has become very, very expensive and really out of reach for a lot of folks. So it's always comes back to our budget, the resources, how we tax people, what money we have, and where we put that money in our priority system.